It's time to celebrate little Pumantti Banbino.
I found me the vino, Pumantti Banbino.
2021, these are the best books I read. I went out, I was hunting for great books, I spent a lot of money, but the rewards are just stupendous. When you read a great book, it changes your life. And if you're lucky enough to read one great book a year, you know it, you feel it, you tell your friends. Let's get started. Javier Marias, A Heart So White. I read this just about a year ago. I think it was January in 2021. Like, this book is so unbelievably good. Well, why didn't I do a review of it if it's so amazing? I read this book before I even had the idea of starting the YouTube channel. And then when I did start the YouTube channel in August, I forgot about it. You know, I made a list of the books I wanted to review. And then I was also reading other great books. And I said, okay, this is going to be a good review and I want to do this one. And it just escaped me. There's a lot in it that's quite mysterious and you really need to contemplate what you're reading. So I think what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to let it sit. I'm going to read it again. And I think on that reread, I'm going to get quite a lot more. You know, the first read with this book is very much the experiment to see how much you get. And the second read, I think all of the nuance really will come out. So this book is tremendous. I hope you have the patience to wait. All right, the next one. I'm sorry about the cover. This was the very first book I reviewed. Revolutionary Road by Richard Yates. I think it was this book that really caused me to think I need to start a YouTube channel to tell people about this book because this is lost. Nobody has ever told me about this book. I've never heard about this book, even though they made a film in 2006, 2008. Even with like the two biggest Hollywood actors in the world, I still had not heard of this novel. Like, this book I could really identify with because it's about the suburbs. And that's where I grew up. I grew up in suburban Canada, and maybe because I was a child of the 1980s, disenfranchised teenager of the 90s, there was quite a lot of self-loathing about coming from the suburbs, that there was something inherently wrong about living in suburbia. Everything was superficial and people wore masks. There was a hidden underbelly of subversive psychology. There was something wrong with people in the suburbs. They were sort of aliens. And this book is about a couple who, for financial reasons, they have bought a house in the suburbs on Revolutionary Road. They have two kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. He goes off to the city every day. They despise life in the suburbs. They complain about it, they hate it, they talk about escaping from, but they don't. And they are tearing each other apart. She has these plans and the ideas. He is, I suppose the only word is feckless. Kind of wants to escape from the suburbs, but he's just got a raise, he's got a promotion at work, and so he is quite comfortable suddenly. And meanwhile, his wife is laying plans to get out of suburbia. She wants to move to Paris, to Europe. They are miserable. Is looking for some kind of an escape. They're fighting against it and they are chafing against the constraints of it. And they could probably leave if they really wanted to, but somehow maybe it's the lethargy of the suburban life that causes them to stay. I don't know. If that's what you like, if you like a married couple who are just at each other all the time, you know, they want something and they look at their spouse and they're wanting more than what they have, and it is causing them just to explode. It's so well written. Like, you read this and it just, you finish the whole book. It goes by like nothing. It looks like a big book. It's really not. It's 450 pages. The writing is so sharp and fast. It's 2 or 3 days, but it is, you know, by the time you get to the end, the animosity is quite fierce between these two. Read it. The next book is Sour Sweet by Timothy Moe. Have you ever heard of it? It is really a lost, obscure novel, but it is brilliant and you should read it. There's a lot about literature that I enjoy. I like it when a novel can show me how people live in circumstances, different times and eras, in different cities that I can't possibly understand. And a novel can show me that. Sour Sweet, it is about a family of immigrants who have come from China and they live in London. Husband is working as a waiter in a Chinese restaurant. The wife and her sister are staying at home, trying to make a life and trying to save every penny that they can, scrimping on any expense to have a good life. Some hope that things will improve or get better if they save enough money. And it happens that they do have some money, and they open their own little Chinese restaurant out in some construction zone. Looks like it will do some business. And again, saving all of the money they can possibly save. They are, sleeping on these wooden pallets, trying, and they are, every single time they try something new, it is just fraught with all of the mistakes you could possibly make. They make those mistakes, and yet still they're building the business. The restaurant is becoming more popular. People are trying to help them. Now, maybe I also have a connection to this novel because in 1999, I decided that I wanted to give up my Canadian life. It was very comfortable, it was very easy, but what I really wanted was to be a writer. I just felt that there was no way I would ever be a writer if I continued living in Ottawa. And I moved to Europe, lived in Budapest. I only thought I would live there for 4 years, but I ended up living there for almost 16 years. I know how hard it is for a foreigner to try to live in a new city where the language is a massive challenge. You don't have any friends. You are just constantly scrambling. You've got to find the food. You've got to find everything. You go to the store and everything is written in Hungarian and you don't understand it. Okay, so you identify things. You can see bread and you can see soap and you could see breakfast cereal. It takes a while to figure out which one that is. I love Revolutionary Road, and I said to myself, that has to be the best book I read in 2021. And then I read Sour Sweet, and it was just, it was more. And actually, this is not too far off from Sour Sweet. Actually, it's fairly close in the initial conception. So Bernice Rubens, the elected member, she won the Booker Prize in, it was one of the first Booker Prize, maybe 69, 70, 71. So sublime and sad. It just feels like such an honest, heartfelt portrayal of a family that is being destroyed, not maliciously, not from the outside. They're being destroyed from within. So the novel starts off with the character Norman Zweck. Norman is waking up and he is suffering from drug withdrawal. He's hallucinating, he's sweating, he's frantic. His father, Rabbi Zweck, and his younger sister are in the next room and they're listening to him freaking out. They are discussing what to do, that they feel that, okay, we're going to have to send him away to the sanatorium again. But this is not the first time that he's had to go. Chapter by chapter, as we follow this family, as they're wrestling this son, manhandling him into the hospital for drug rehabilitation, we are getting the backstory. We get the story of Rabbi Zweck, who came to England, not speaking any English, and how he was searching for the Jewish part of London so he could establish himself. I love that. I love an immigrant story. Quite significantly, we get the mother's doings in the family. Like the mother, who was now absent, had a very decidedly poor effect on her family. Her wishes on how she would like the family to be brought up really seems to be quite at the root of much of the conflict now. And then we discover that there is a second sister in absentia. She has been banished from the family. The father does not speak about that second daughter. He would like to. He loves her and he wishes he could bridge this divide that has come between them. The mother. But it has been going on for something like 5 years now, and it's just too hard for him now to reach out. He feels that he would be disgracing the memory of his wife if he were to reach out to the daughter now that she's dead. And the daughter as well, the second daughter, she would like to come back to the family because, she misses them. Absolutely heartbreaking, this novel, but it is written with such simple clarity, chapter by chapter by chapter, and it's such a short novel, but it just has this wealth of emotion. That book, it just has to get you. It really does. It is such a simple tragedy, and I'm not even thinking about the drug addiction. I'm thinking there's other elements that I won't mention because you'll enjoy it if you can find those out on your own. It starts with the drug addiction. That's step one. Please, The Elected Member by Bernice Rubens, you have to give that one a chance. Just the simple family drama, the mother, the father, the 3 children. There is some poison in this family, and the question is where has this disease come from that is poisoning their lives? Moon Tiger. written by Penelope Lively, the winner of the Booker Award in 1987. So I told you, what have I told you? I like an immigrant story. I like life in the suburbs, like why it is so contentious. And one of my other favorite things in literature is an old person looking back on their life. I can't get enough of that. In those books, you have to read very carefully, because oftentimes when people are looking back, people are very selective about their memories, picking and choosing their memories and even their tragedies, remembering in a way which, as a reader, we have to suppose that the information they are giving us is not all there. Penelope Lively in Moon Tigers is doing something a little bit differently. So she starts off with an old woman in a hospital bed, and this woman has some grandiose plans to write the history of the world, you know, and she is goofy with her own hubris. You know, she's going to write the history of the world, the whole thing. In the second half of chapter 1, it is a nurse who is talking to a doctor, and she is saying, that woman, did she used to be someone? And the doctor is looking at her chart and he says, oh yeah, she was in journalism some time ago. And the nurse says, wow, she's so full of nonsense. You know, like she's so silly with her ideas. The doctor says, yeah, well, you know, she used to be someone. So she's a bit giddy these days. And right away, there it is, this how she looks at herself, her capabilities, and how other people see her. She believes she is one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, and she has all of this potential to write this magnum opus, and the nurse just sees her as a very silly old fool. And that is Moon Tiger. This woman is thinking in bed, she's thinking about her daughter. This woman is so arrogant and she's quite obnoxious. She really thinks she's some kind of a genius. Nobody really comes up to her standards. Writing about her daughter as a child and how she's annoying and she's not very intelligent and she'll never amount to much. And then the daughter comes in to visit the mother in the hospital bed, and we see something completely different. You know, how we see ourselves, how others see us, how you remember it, how other people remember it. So Moon Tiger, Penelope Lively, please. Again, I think that book is nearly lost, even though it won the Booker Award, one of the most prestigious awards for literature. It's not number 1 and number 2. These are the best books of the year. But these two, right now, I'm holding some magic between my hands. If Not Now, When, by Primo Levi. I made a review of this book just last week. I wasn't sure if it was going to be popular, a bit of a mystery to me. Like when I post a video, I'm never sure if it's going to be a big one or not such a big one. And it looks like this one is really well received, so thank you guys for that. You read this work of fiction and it feels like you are getting a course in history. World War II, Germany is sweeping across Europe. They're not destroying everyone in their wake. There are hundreds of little villages, thousands of people trying to survive, trying to avoid the Germans, whether because they don't want to be killed, mainly because they don't want to be killed. And they are trying to survive. And we have 2 Jewish soldiers. We have Mendel and we have Leonid, who are somewhere, in my video I said they were in southwestern Poland, but actually they start off northeastern Poland, walking, making their way down, looking for a group of partisans that they can join up with to hide, first and foremost, to feed themselves, if they have the capability to try to sabotage the German army and not get caught and not have their little group of partisans massacred, because that is surely what will happen if they are caught. Like the first half of the book, it's like you're just walking on eggshells. They have to travel at night. They haven't eaten. Catching frogs to eat. Main character, he's reflecting on the Jewish laws about what is edible and what is forbidden. You are not allowed to eat this. They are starving. They will eat anything that they can find. The writing is so clear and lively. The sentences are flowing along. And Primo Levi, I can't even talk about Primo Levi because the video will be 2 hours long. And in his writing, didn't want the language to be flowery or emotional or dramatic. He wanted the language of his novel to be written in a very clear, unemotional way. He wanted to give people images and pictures. He didn't want to give them emotions. The emotions, don't worry, the emotions will come, but he didn't want to supply those emotions for the reader. He just wanted to show, here is life in the camp. And I think that is his greatest talent as an artist. I can't speak highly enough about this novel. Like, this novel has really deeply affected me. I have one more book. If you're looking at all of these books and you're wondering which one you want to read first, read this one first. Give it to your children. Give it to the next generation. Like we have to keep this book alive. What's the last book? Which book, say my favorite of the year? Perhaps, if not now, when? Let's say that is the best book of the year. But this one, I think, is really my favorite. Eugenie Grandet by Honoré de Balzac. So this book is almost 200 years old, and it is set in a little town in France to the west of Paris, in a village, a real town called Saumur. And it is the story of Monsieur Grandet, Eugenie's father. He began life as a cooper. With the success of that business, he naturally went into wine, became a wine merchant. From there, he bought some land, became one of the richest business people in this village, perhaps even in France. But he is a miser. In fact, I would say that in all of literature, he's the ultimate miser. Now, maybe if you're a fan of Charles Dickens, you're saying, hey, wait a minute, what about Scrooge from A Christmas Carol? No. Scrooge was miserable and he was a miser, but this man, he is hoarding gold so much for the value. Like he's obsessed. Like he goes into his locked strong room where he keeps piles of gold and he's looking at it. He's in love with the shiny yellow color of the gold. This novel starts off with the eponymous, is that the right word? Eugenie Grandet. Her birthday's coming up. The first half of the book really is mostly concerned with Monsieur Grandet, the father, the patriarch. And even though he's one of the richest people in the village, he lives in poverty, keeps his wife and his daughter and their maidservant living in absolute poverty. It is the reason why I love this book so much, is because twisting with humiliation, my toes were curling up in my shoes because it was just so horrible to read about this man. He has a cupboard, a larder, where he keeps the food, and it's locked. And in the morning, he unlocks it. The maidservant comes in and he weighs out how much flour she can use and how much butter she can use. She's allowed to use 2 eggs. And she has to negotiate with him. Like, oh, today I thought I would make a special meal for dinner. Can I get some extra chicken? And he doesn't want to give it to her. He tells her, oh, why don't you go to one of the local peasants' farms, these farmers who live on his land. As a part of their rent that they pay him, they also deliver him flour and chicken and, foodstuffs from the local area. Like, it's a nightmare reading this book because it's just so awful. I think in today's world and more modern literature, we have this archetype of, say, an alcoholic or a drug addict who's destroying their life, but they are also destroying the lives of the people around them. But this is way back. And this is a man who has this gold obsession, and he's allowing it to, not to destroy his family, but he doesn't care. Just for instance, like I can give you 100 for instances about his cheapness. They live in this old house, no central heating, and they have a fire. But his strict rule is that you can only have a fire from the 1st of November to March the 31st. And you cannot have a fire from April till October. Forbidden, no matter how cold, frigid the home gets. Because it's a waste of wood, and wood costs money, and money means gold. So the mother and the daughter and the maid, they're all knitting and sewing and repairing the old clothes and making new clothes, huddled around the fire, around the one candlestick that he allows them to burn. And meanwhile, he has this room with piles and piles of gold. It hurts me. It is Eugenie Grandet, it is her birthday. Some of the neighboring families, they have some young sons who are eligible to be husbands. And of course they want their sons to marry into this extraordinarily wealthy family, so they're really trying to get on the good side of Monsieur Grandet. And Eugenie, she's not really, she's quite dominated by her father. She doesn't have a lot of say, and the father is meanwhile standing back, sort of sneering, looking at these families and the gifts they bring. Like, oh, those are the gifts you bring, trying to get my daughter to marry you into, my piles of gold is what you really want. And he's assessing the value of the gifts, and it is sickening. Guess what? An unexpected visitor shows up at the Grandet household. It is the cousin, Eugenie's cousin, her father's brother, her uncle, his son, her cousin, from Paris. Now the 2 brothers have not seen each other for 30 years, and he only knows that his brother is living in Paris as a lawyer, and he lives a very good life. The brother in Paris thinks that his brother is living in the countryside, enjoying an extremely good life, and everything he touches turns to gold. So he sends the cousin to go to visit the family. And the cousin is a young Parisian dandy. He goes to the countryside, like just dressed in absolute splendor. And he's searching for his uncle's house, Monsieur Grandet. He's looking and he just can't believe, like, oh, how is it? You know, my father told me this man was wealthy and he's living in this hovel. Knocks on the door, opens the door, and he sees like a room full of scruffy peasants. And here's this man just sparkling in his refinery. And I guess I should just stop there. From there, the story just explodes. Honoré de Balzac, for me, it works exceptionally well. Some people say that his writing is simple, but I think it is just perfect. All of his characters represent one psychological facet. So Monsieur Grandet, the father, is kind of this tyrannical patriarch who is hoarding the gold. The wife is very retiring and timid, and she is wifely devotion. The child is emulating sort of a pure love. She loves her parents. She doesn't doubt her father loves the family and he is taking care of them. And when he's saying that, oh, he's actually a very poor man, she believes him completely. Maidservant is just a servant. She is born to work and suffer. Cousin who arrives, he represents social climbing. That is what he is interested in doing. He wants to ascend the social ladder. Balzac's thinking when he wrote this story, and I believe when he wrote most of his massive collection of literature known as Comédie Humaine, was to take these psychological aspects, put them together, and allow the story to unfold. Beautiful, amazing conflict that arises from the disturbance of these forces. Blew my mind. I read it in 2 or 3 days. Loved every moment of it. At first, I was a bit worried because it starts off with a description of the street and the house. And I thought, oh God, that's not a good start. But once we got into the house and we started to meet the characters, so good. Those are my top 7 books of 2021. I feel that my life is richer for having read them. Video's not getting too long? Oh, well, if it's too long, you click away, right? You don't have to watch the whole thing. Every year I try to read 2 plays by Shakespeare. In the summer, I read a comedy. Those are really not my favorites. In the winter, I read a tragedy. I'm almost done with the tragedies. I'm almost finished. I've only got 1 left for next year. But this year, I read Coriolanus. For about 20 years, I've been saying that Othello is my favorite tragedy. I love Othello. But while I was reading Coriolanus, I have a new favorite Shakespearean play. Like, Coriolanus is just so good until the 5th act really falls apart and it just goes to hell. I don't want to spoil a 500-year-old play. Acts 1 to 4 are incredible. It is about this soldier named Coriolanus. That's actually not his name when he starts the play. His name is Caius Marcus, and then later his name is changed. He is a soldier, and he is the best soldier in Rome, defender of the Roman borders. People want him to be a statesman. They want him to be some kind of a politician, and he refuses. He doesn't refuse being a politician, but he refuses to pander. He refuses to say anything nice. Like, there's this bit where he goes to fight in this war against this other army, and he is courageous and brave and valiant beyond all measure, because that's what he feels is the thing to be. But he has no form of diplomacy. Typically, when the soldiers come back, they wear this skimpy toga to show the common people, like, look, here are all my scars. See how I've bled for Rome. Typically, they would make a big show of it to impress all of these people, and they would be voted into the Senate. Coriolanus doesn't want to do that, and he doesn't want to show his scars because he feels that it is beneath him and it is vulgar to do that, that I am a soldier and I fight, and these are nothing but scratches. And the fact that you idiots want to look at them is perverse. Because he refuses to play the political game, the crowd turns against him. He is banished from Rome, the greatest warrior that Rome has ever had, because they feel that he's too proud. And there is this scene at the beginning of Act 4, Scene 1. At the beginning of Act 4, he's saying goodbye to his mother and his wife, and he's saying goodbye to his best friend and his colonel. It is the most manly monologue I have ever read. I was getting pumped up. I was, Jesus, this is some man shit right now. This is really God damn, that's the man stuff. Don't cry. I am a soldier. Wherever I will go, I will carve my way out of society, and you will hear from me. And when you hear from me, you will know that I will not have changed 1 iota. This world will not change me, dampen my courage. It will not erase my bravery. I will be this man. And you all, stop being such a bunch of pussies. I'm only banished. It just knocked me on my ass when I read that. I couldn't believe it. I want to show you this. So in the back of this book, there's a picture here. Can you see it? Do you see that? So it says Coriolanus with Gloria Foster, Voluminia, and Morgan Freeman as Coriolanus, directed by Wilfrid Leach in 1979 at the Delacorte Theatre in Central Park. There. I don't know who the people are who are working on the time machine, but please, can you get on it? Because I have to go back and see Morgan Freeman as Coriolanus. I'll even go get Sarah Connor for you if you want me to. But best book of the year, runner-up, is not a book, it's the series The Sea of Fertility by Yukio Mishima. There's 4 books in the series. One by one, they are, books 1 and 4 are extremely good. Books 2 and 3 are good. Together as a whole series, the series is just amazing. You really feel that you have learned a lot about Japan and Japanese history in the 20th century, and it is amazing story. Like, the more I reflect on it, the deeper I'm feeling about this. Book 1, beginning of the 20th century, simple teenage love and some trouble that goes on there, and also a Japan of another age. Book 2, 20 years later, the situation has quite changed. We are in 1935, 1936 Japan, headed for war. And there is this, these right-wing attitudes being raised in Japan, and no foreigners, none of these left-wing capitalistic people. Japan should be for the emperor. Book 3, kind of a weird one, 1948, and jumps ahead to 1955. It's quite a nice one because the character who has been through all of the books is getting quite corrupt. He's starting to display this inner depravity. And in book 4, the depravity is there. And book 4 is, it takes place, I think, 1973 to 75. And it's just this broad, like, it's really an epic. It's not too long. I don't think the whole series is more than 1,200 pages, which is a lot, but we're talking about 4 novels. Is it too much to read them back to back to back to back? I just think that's the best way to read a series. You will be most rewarded when you read a series like that. If you read one book and then you take some time, or you read some books in between, you're going to get confused. You're not going to remember. It's right there if you read them as one book. That's something I try. I know it's intimidating when you pick up something and it's 2,000 pages or 3,000 pages. Yes, it is. I am always very optimistic. I think if an author, think how much work they are putting into it, sitting down every day trying to manifest this story for your entertainment. All you have to do is read it. Like, your job is really quite easy compared to the struggle that they went through to bring it to you. I keep that in mind. Okay, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video today. I think it's going to be terribly long. I'm trying to make these 3 big videos at the end of the year to give my YouTube channel kind of a big push for 2022. So if you like the videos and you want to support the channel, sharing it with your friends on Facebook. Hey, there's this new guy doing book reviews on YouTube. 7 amazing books, plus a play by Shakespeare, and then a 4-volume series. That's some of the amazing stuff that I read this year, and I hope you're going to read some of it. I really do. If you do, please leave a comment. I love it when you guys leave comments. I love it because it helps me to know that I'm doing something good. Sometimes I think I'm making an absolute fool of myself, talking here with my crooked teeth, getting all dressed up, but with no pants because, I get so sweaty, so I don't wear pants while I'm making the video. You wouldn't believe what the apartment looks like, okay? So I do this to try to make something that's a little bit entertaining, and hopefully you get something from it. All right, Jesus Christ, that's too long now. This is Grantham's books. Make a list for 2022, go out, find them, take some of the dusty ones off the shelf and say, this is the year I'm gonna do it. If you watch my other video about the books I plan to read in 2022 and you want to read some of the same ones as me, please let me know.
Pumantti Banbino from Jordan Wines. Light wine, just right.
I found me the vino, Pumantti Banbino. That's my baby now.
Pumantti Banbino.